There we go.
All right. Howard, you're the moderator.
Yeah, I'm the
So
moderator. But what's this? Got it. Okay.
I want to welcome everyone and thank you for joining us today. We're really, it's a privilege to have Howard and Ron with us. They are, anybody who's worked in the fashion industry has probably encountered Howard or Ron at some point. Some of the most respected teams and that are out there right now and very knowledgeable about issues of fashion, and issues that, range from, they've helped us with trademarks to bylaws to protecting your products, which is what we're here to talk about today. So their firm, Scarinci, Hollenback. Howard is the managing partner for New York. And Howard, I'm going to let you kind of get things started, and then we will introduce Ron.
Great. When Karen and I discussed the topic for this seminar, we both came to the same conclusion. People in our industry want to know about consumer goods and counterfeiting. Both same. I asked my partner, Ron Bienstock, who is an expert in this field and who is an adjunct professor at New York University, to help us understand the topic and its numerous issues. Briefly, Ron is a unique person in this industry who is fully immersed in the apparel and music business together. It's a pleasure to turn the program over to Ron. Thanks, Ron.
Thanks, Howard. So I think we should start with the concept of what it is we're talking about in terms of trademarks. So trademarks in terms of two types, right? You've got a common law thought process, right, where you have not registered a mark. Doesn't mean you have no protection. It's just a common law theory under the Lanham Act. And for those who are looking, that's section 43A, everybody's going to turn right now to their code section and look that up. But there's a common law right that you have, but always to have the preference to be able to enforce a trademark is to have a trademark, a fully registered US trademark. For those who have never dealt with trademarks before, trademarks are by their nature territorial. So a US trademark is just United States Patent and Trademark Office. You would have that for a specific class. For the conversation's sake today, when Howard mentioned music instruments, that would be class 15 by way of example. We use the same classes around the world, but we don't have an international trademark. I get a lot of emails. I probably have one in my inbox in the last 10 minutes that said, hey, get me an international trademark. No such thing. You could apply through WIPO, that's the World Intellectual Property Organization, through various groups and countries to get a bulk status, if you will. But you generally have to apply and own the mark in each territory. So we start with the concept of trademark being a source indicator, meaning it's yours. Your business is the source indicator, right? It's from you. That's what the trademark is supposed to indicate, that the mark indicates it's my company supplying these goods, these products into the marketplace. The issue that always arises, and I already heard when we were just before we started, I heard the dreaded word Alibaba. We'll do this immediately. The issue there is that when it comes to trademarks and you register a mark, that things may occur when you have something of value. And lots of US code sections are both criminal and civil are part of this. And in section 18, 2320, you've got 23, you've got section 1526, you've got the subsection 133. All of these are both criminal and civil penalties for counterfeiting. And the first step after we've described, we have a registered trademark, we have renewed the trademark between the 5th and 6th year, 9th and 10th year, and every 10 years after, we keep our trademarks renewed so they become incontestable. That doesn't mean Superman-like, things don't necessarily bounce off. There is a little bit of kryptonite left, if you will, when it comes to trademarks. And that is that once it's incontestable, people can still seek to cancel. And during the registration process, people can oppose if someone says, I will be hurt by your registering that mark. But once it's a registered mark, over time, there are less opportunities for a third party to say, no, I see your trademark. I'm making something that is, here we go, confusingly similar, right? And that's going to be what we're talking about, the nature of confusion. That's what counterfeiting is all about, is that we're confusing the consumer as to who the source is, right? So we have this issue then of what can somebody say to us about our trademark? Well, our trademark, once we have this asset of our corporate structure, our LLC, or even just an individual, it becomes something that is valuable to us, and we have to maintain it. So we register it, we maintain it, and we have to police it. If you don't police your mark, you can lose your marks, right? People can then say, you sat on this, it's now generic. Elevator, aspirin, these were all at one time, escalator, I think is another one, were all trademarks, and then they became generic. I've had a little experience in the generic side because the leading case, and I don't get to say this and I'm being taped, this is not typical for me, as Howard will tell you, but the leading case in genericism is actually one of mine. So I can get to talk about a little bit of knowledge. So once we enter this world of owning a trademark and we've registered it, we've maintained it, we've policed it, how do we enforce it, right? Policing means we tell people, hey, stop making something similar. But how do we enforce it? And that leads straight into the concept of policing and enforcement, and they go together. And then how do we, as people love to say, how do we protect ourselves? Well, the first level is we can use customs. We can register a mark with customs, and they can actually seize products that are coming in from a foreign territory into the United States that has our mark on it, as long as we have a registration on the principal register. There are two types. There's supplemental, the sup, as we refer to it as, and the principal. If we have a principally registered, the big leagues, if you will, we have a registered mark, we can use it to enforce and police, and we can use customs to do that for us. And I'm going to go through a couple of examples that Karen will send around to you afterwards. I said there's about 6 or 7 sites you should take a look at, and some of this I think you'll find interesting. Let's go through one I found very interesting. If you're unaware, you have certain European territorial areas that say the trademark of, let's call it Reggiano Parmigiano. I know we're at lunchtime. That may be hard to go through right this second, but Reggiano Parmigiano is a region in Italy where certain cheeses are manufactured and maintained and then exported from. And same thing with the Champagne region of France. So people don't want you to say, I have Reggiano Parmigiano, I have Parmesan cheese. And if you go to the grocery store, there's many manufacturers of Parmesan cheese. There should be one Reggiano Parmesan or 2 Reggiano Parmesan. And one of the things I wanted to bring up in that article that you'll see is that to protect that branding, to protect that source indication, the region has started to put transponders, edible transponders, into wheels of Reggiano Parmesan. I know that sounds crazy, but that's real. So they can tell when they look at it, going through a scanning system, that this comes from the Reggiano region of Italy. This is the real deal. That's how far it's come, because the value is in the source. You know, when you buy that cheese, it's coming from that region. And this is where it all starts. It's the idea of source indication, quality, the idea of that being quality. Look, you know it's good because it comes from my region. You know it's made in a certain way. You know it has certain enzymes. You know that it's made this way and it's aged this way. And that way, the quality control, the essence of trademark quality control, is in my hands. And I make this quality product, and you can guarantee that when you buy it, you know you're getting something good. And that's where we sort of start on the concept of what the trademark is supposed to mean to the public. In that article, the next article, when you get to this, and here comes the one, everybody knows somebody who's done this. It's about super fakes. And it's a New York Times article about the handbags. And here we go. I don't know when this started with everybody on our Zoom meeting here, but I can tell you the first time I ever saw a fake was a watch. Long before my lovely bride of 32 years and I were together, an older long girlfriend, many decades ago, bought a watch when she was in New York and said, look how cool that is. And I took a look and said, what? You could, where, you could never have, yeah, she bought it from the guy outside of 48th Street, saying it's a real deal. It cost her $100. The watch lasted about 2 months and it stopped and never to be working again. Quality issue. But the handbags bring up something else. Generally no moving parts. Generally, it's going to be in the quality of the leather, quality of the stitching, quality of the clasp, quality of the goods themselves. And the article that in this Super Fakes article in New York Times talks very detailed about how close, and we all know what we're talking about here, because I sent in another article that I sent along on that. You'll see the percentage of counterfeits and where they come from, bulk from China. I'm not insulting anybody. We know that's the case. But the handbag quality has gotten so good that people are in China, and generally it's 2 provinces that they're coming from, are copying the stitching down to the number of stitches. 8 stitches here, 10 stitches there. What did it cost to build the brand? And I know that there are people go, this is a victimless crime, right? Or a victimless circumstance. We all know it's not, because it took your company hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars to establish the quality brand name association with your product. That counterfeiter with their handbag parties, and when they buy directly from China, when they go, hey, come on over, I'll have hors d'oeuvres. You can buy a handbag for me for $100 instead of $1,000 or more. One thing happens right away. My company, right? My company has been supporting the quality of that handbag in the marketplace through ads, promotion. I might even have a serious amount of money put into my social media campaigns. I may have paid influencers. And by the way, you have to announce that you have paid influencers. I may have influencers. I may have people who are using it. I may have people who I didn't even know were using it. The classic Uggs moment where people just picked it up. And then there was every copy in the world of Uggs. But Uggs spent a fair amount of money trying to make sure they maintained their brand. And the mark, Uggs, the trademark, was openly displayed on the back of the goods. And that's part of the process. We are looking at the trademarks and they identify the source. And we've put a lot of real capital into the quality association. We've put a lot of time and money into the promotion of the products. So when someone says, well, what's the big deal? I bought a handbag. One sale, less from your company to pay your people to continue the manufacturing process of delivering quality goods to the marketplace. And instead, someone takes sort of almost a sort of, and I'm going to get to this much more detail in a little while, about almost a cynicism that is in the marketplace with purchasers, right? Consumers will go, hey, I got over on the man. Well, the man no longer gender specific. It's everybody. I'm getting something over on somebody. I bought the handbag for $100. And I've had these conversations with people who are proud of having gone to the pocketbook party and handbag party and bought 2 or 3 of these fake things. And we're sort of saying, look what I got. And my only comment was, they are cheap. They are going to break. They're not of the same quality. You're taking money away from a manufacturer who employs others, and you're keeping the same manufacturer from putting the money to develop even new and better products. And all of this is lost on a lot of consumers. This is a huge, huge issue with the consumer perception in the marketplace. So one of the things you need to understand is sometimes people will say, well, I heard that they grabbed up all these watches. Remember, you've seen this. They grabbed up all these fake Rolexes and they crushed them with a little bit of a steamroller and somewhere on Broadway. And people go, "That's crazy. What are you doing?" Wait. Think about what Rolex thinks about, or Breitling, or anyone else. When someone buys a fake and says, "Hey, look what I got. This is great. I got over on them." They'll never know. No one can tell the difference. Someone has lost the sale. Someone's lost that opportunity to give a quality product to someone. I'm not talking about things that we're all going to say, that's crazy, overpriced. All right. That's not for today's conversation. But for today's conversation, everybody gets hurt. Everybody gets hurt in this. Everybody thinks it's cool and okay, but everybody gets hurt. Now, I'm going to give you a great, very specific example of something I have been working on for years, and it's also going to be sent out by Karen when we're done. Anybody familiar with these bracelets? Loci bracelets?
Mhm.
The Loci bracelets? All right, you familiar with these? No.
No.
Very popular with kids, as they say.
Wow.
Right? Loci, very popular, worn by lots of people through the years, many millions of these sold. So this is the original Loci bracelet in that it has a hang tag indicating the brand. It has two beads, a white and black bead. The white bead it contains water from the Mount Everest area, and the black bead contains mud from the Dead Sea. And the point is highs and lows in life, right? Very philosophical thing. And money is given to charities when they have a color, and I'll get into that in a second. All right, that could be an AIDS-related or any other cause that they have loci, and they give 10% or percentage of their profits to. But this is the original bracelet. Now let's examine this for a second. What is this made of? It's made of silicone. It is made in China. It does contain these two things. If you cut these two beads, it will have these items in it. And this is the original bracelet. Many, many, many millions of this original bracelet were sold. Well, I think we could all say one thing. This may not be the most difficult thing to copy. All right. So one of the suggestions I made about 10 years ago, well, maybe a little less, maybe a little more than 10 years ago, was that they just had the black and white bead. And in the trademark world, I said we need to be able to identify the product, not just from the black and white bead, which is their trademark, diametric opposed black and white bead. I put on what I suggested was an identifier bead, probably difficult to see, but it has the logo, this little water droplet. Is that upside down? When you do the reverse, right? Sorry, with that little water droplet logo right there, that you can see it. That water droplet logo, that is actually on this bead and this bead. So you've got a trademark in the white and black diametric beads. You've got the identifier marks on the beads themselves. So when I take that hang tag off, when I've sold it and they take the hang tag off, that still indicates the source. Those are the valuable trademarks involved with this product. Well, what happened? Well, as I suggested, this is a pretty simple thing to make a mold of. For those who don't know how molds are made, in China, they can cost you, $1,000 or less. And we inject certain things into it. We make plastic, pieces of plastic jewelry, or we make rubber things, and we just have molds, right? And it can be done with metals, and it can be done with anything else, earrings and all kinds of accessories. Well, this is a youthful accessory to some extent, right? This sort of philosophical youthful accessory. It's waterproof, so people would wear it when they would be in, swimming, or, it's something that generally took off pretty well in more of a youthful campaign, and everybody wanted one. And they sell for about $19 to $20. Well, what started to appear everywhere? And by the way, Howard doesn't even know this, but Howard, we had probably in the older office in Lyndhurst, upstairs, I probably had confiscated from people in my settlement agreements. I probably had a couple 100,000 fakes up there. We eventually threw them all away, right? A couple 100,000. Think about that. If someone is selling this product for $2.99, $3.99, $4.99, and every time it is sold, Loci doesn't give money to a charity. Loci loses the sale, and someone thinks they're wearing it. And when it breaks, and this has happened, people were sending the broken bracelets back to Loci saying, this thing broke. This is a cheap thing. By the way, I cut this open. There's nothing in these beads, because they were counterfeits. Here's a counterfeit. You can see a little bit. I picked one specifically. You can see on the red and red, right? Let me get my hand so I can see. There's an original, right? That's a real deal, right? Let me get that. Right, pretty, you can see that's a red one. It's a specific charity that they've got here, right? And you can see that one. And here's the fake. And look very carefully at that bead. You see the little red in that bead? Oh, there we go. See it? It kind of leaks through. That's a cheap. I'm not really great at this. Sorry. There you go. See, everybody see that?
Yeah.
All right. That's a pretty easy fake to spot. We got really pretty good at spotting the fakes. And we have gotten, people were so brazen that they were getting these made first without the indicator bead, the water droplets, but then they started to make them with the water droplets. And they were selling them literally by the millions. Well, that could just put you right out of business. If people are saying, I'll spend $3.99, well, I don't care about the charity. I got the cool little bracelet. I give it to my child. I give it to my uncles and friends, and everybody's happy. No one gets hurt. We know everybody gets hurt. All right. Think about the loss we had. So we started to have to enforce this. There were a lot of lawsuits, and the lawsuits are incredibly expensive. And Howard and I may be the only lawyers who will say, we try to avoid this. We don't want you to spend that money litigating it. It's incredibly expensive because it's trademark litigation to enforce your rights by saying these are infringing goods and they're counterfeit, two separate items. One, infringing means that these are confusingly similar. And also counterfeit means that you've copied everything here and are trying to be the company and taking advantage of the fact that we're going to sell these. Now, sometimes people even had fake tags, hang tags on them. And you could always tell the fake hang tag just by the printing. It wasn't the same paper. It didn't feel the same way. You can tell. But this one, I don't have the hang tag, sorry, because this became an evidence piece in an arbitration, actually in a mediation we did, with a really, really large national chain who we caught selling hundreds and hundreds of thousands. And we had a settlement with them. But we've been in federal court all across the country because federal court is the place you go. That's the jurisdiction and venue for federal questions, copyright, trademark, and patent. So we were there, and it's expensive. And sometimes the clients had to hire investigators to go find where people were coming up with this, or we would do our own research. And I'll let you know, for the sake of conversation today, in one of the matters we had to bring in Colorado, we found a kiosk. A fellow was selling outside of a convention where it was, jewelry and accessories convention in I think it was Denver. And we had someone go, an investigator go, and videotape purchasing and talking to this person. Well, when we had to sue this person, I kid you not, in court, he actually said, "That's not me." Even though he's on tape saying, how many do you want? I can get you hundreds of thousands of these. I can do bulk discount. I can ship them anywhere in the country. How many do you want? And he has a name tag. At the same time, he's saying this. And in court, he's saying to a judge, federal judge, "That's not me. That's not me there. I don't know who that is." Yeah, it's not simple. It's not always easy. The words.
Did he get away with it?
No, he did not.
Good to know.
No, he did not get away with that. It was probably one of the more absurd moments you've ever had. No one had to say a word. All you had to do was go like this to the judge. Right? You don't have to say anything, right? Everybody understood what was happening. This is important to note because this brings in everything into one matter. The registration process, carefully registering the marks, using multiple marks, maybe even in multiple classes. That way you have more strength to this. The ability to enforce it depends on what you own, right? How long have you had it? The date we like to have in trademarks, that we call that, is the priority date. How long have we had the priority date? To the people who come along and say, mine's really close. I don't have that bead. I've only got one bead. All the people that will try to do the circles around your product. But when they copy the product and they say they're you, or they say it's the exact thing, or it's a cheaper version, or it's a discounted version, generally that's going to be a counterfeit. And that's the conversation we're having today. So it's a combination of infringement and counterfeiting. So this is one matter that we've been working on for years. And I think we've improved that. There's been a lot less activity in that regard. But I'm going to go to another type of trademark and another type of counterfeiting. Everybody here is familiar with Tiffany. Anybody not familiar with that? I don't mean the pop star of the 90s. I'm talking about the company. All right. So we all know Tiffany has a particular trademark, the way UPS has a trademark, and that is in a color. Tiffany has a Tiffany blue. UPS has a very specific brown. By the way, Tiffany's blue is for all the packaging, because you know when someone brings that to you and it's in that blue bag with that color, you know you're probably getting something pretty good. All right, there's something from Tiffany in it, and most people get pretty excited because they look at that bag and they can identify by that color blue. Something good's coming their way. Well, color marks. So Howard mentioned the music instrument business, and as a musician, it's the best thing in the whole world. But there are occasionally a color mark. For those who don't play guitar, this is called a guitar pickup. Guitars have generally 1, 2, or 3 pickups that the strings go over. These are pole pieces. The strings go over and it picks up the sound. It goes to a jack, it goes to an amplifier, and it gets loud. And sometimes you may find that really annoying if you have a new guitar player who is 11 or 12 years old until they get better. But we understand. So this is a guitar pickup. It's made by a company called DiMarzio. And you can tell because on the back it says made in the USA, DiMarzio. Right? And this is a very specific color. Larry DiMarzio invented the idea of an aftermarket replacement guitar pickup in the mid-70s in this color. And it has exposed coils. It doesn't have a cover, right? All the guitar pickups of the day had covers, metal covers, because it would keep it from making noise. So this was called a humbucker. I'm sorry to be kind of nerdy on you here, but it's what it's called. So this type of humbucker pickup with 2 coils literally bucks hum, makes it quieter. And this client of ours, Mr. DiMarzio, brought this out in the mid-70s, and he sells millions of these and still does. Well, people want to have that quality association, and they like to use that color. Well, Larry picked this color, Mr. DiMarzio picked this color, because you can spot this from across the room when someone's playing guitar. This is a small piece. When I back away and I put this into my guitar, you can't see a name on it, right? So this is identifiable by the color. That's a very specific trademark, and not as easy to get. And there have been this has been a contested mark. People would love to be able to make this, but let's look at it from the company perspective. This product's been in the marketplace for 45 years and sells all around the US and in the many millions. In this color, because you can identify it, the source is DiMarzio. Consumers know it. They look at that color and they go, yeah, I know what that is. That's DiMarzio. And actually the model is called a super distortion. And everybody knows that. They can tell by the color. Well, people would like to use that. So there are many counterfeit versions of this. And how do you tell counterfeit? Well, we knew from our prior conversation here, this may have been $3.99 at AliExpress or eBay or Jane or Etsy. Right? Because it's easy to sell this stuff online, and everybody, unless you enforce it and police it, they can get away with that until you enforce your rights. So in AliExpress, we see this and we have to stop it. We do a takedown and we tell that person, you can't sell this. And occasionally you'll get and Howard and I both love this, you'll occasionally get an irate person who goes, what are you doing shutting down my business? What are you doing here? I'm just selling some guitar pickups. I'm just selling some what's wrong with you? I hate lawyers. Oh, lawyers always making trouble. You guys, I hate you guys. And then you have to go through, it's not your mark. And by the way, you're selling it for $19.99. This does not go for $19.99. This is more like $90. That's a huge difference. By the way, made in the USA, made in Staten Island, right? With the same people probably been working for that same company for decades, making these quality items. That's the point. When you go to AliExpress, you're getting something else. You're getting something that says probably going to be country of origin China, and it's going to be the not the product. And when you get it, you're going to be really disappointed most of the time. I have a really good example. So my wife and I do triathlons, and so there's a lot of Oakley glasses for running and cycling. And my wife got a pitch from someone about on I think it was on Facebook about a great buy on these Oakley glasses, and I said, they're fake. Look at the price. Look at the price of them, right? And the lenses are probably really cheap plastic, which is a whole separate conversation about quality. But I said, that's going to be fake. She said, well, you want me to order one to find out? And I said, it's a waste of money. But if you really want to find out, because everybody's saying, oh, these are great, these are great, these are great. Who knows where those testimonials come from? So we did. We ordered them, and they were utter garbage. And they were laughably bad. And they came in these little cheap little cases, and they were terrible pieces of plastic, and they didn't fit proper. They're terrible. So there's the quality issue. And the quality issue is that Oakley is not even a client of ours, but the quality issue is if you pick it up and you use it and you feel it, it doesn't have that same thing. And then you think poorly of, well, maybe it's Oakley's fault. Maybe that's a discount Oakley. There's no discount for these. These are only one type. There's no discount for these. There's only the one type. So when people tell you, I got a great deal on this stuff, they're hurting everybody. There are two more I want to go through, and then we can at some point get to questions. I know everybody's going to have a million of them. So as Howard said, I'm besides consumer products, I'm a total gear geek in the music business. I admit it. I'm the worst type. I put people to sleep at dinner parties. I am the worst one to talk to. Everybody's probably going to need a nap right now. When I start this, I understand that. But music instruments are a good example of how these things occur. An electric guitar, a solid body electric guitar. Anybody not know what I mean by that? Everybody knows what I mean by that? Solid body electric guitar. Take your pick. Eric Clapton, Jimi Hendrix, Slash. Everybody, those are all solid body electric guitars people are playing, right? Or even a semi-hollow body, B.B. King, things like that, right? So these guitars are made of wood. And wood is easy to work with, right? It's easy to work with. We're not talking about diamonds, right? These are pieces of wood. So if you have a CNC machine, that's a computer-controlled manufacturing process, not that expensive to have. And you say, I can make an exact copy of that guitar because the guitar's neck bolts on to the instrument itself. And if you want me to show you, I can show that to you. Hold on. Just happen to have one right here. Yes, in my home office, there's always an instrument around.
Will you be playing for us today?
That is a paying gig, and Howard will negotiate that fee. So take a look at the 4 bolts here, right? The neck is bolted to the body, right? I turn it over. I've got a bunch of pickups on this side. This happens to be a 5-string fretless bass. I've got a bunch of pickups on this right here. There's pickups and here's a bridge, but that's not the point. This is bolt on, right? So I use a CNC machine. I can make a lot of bolt-on guitars, right? Set neck, which is a glued-in neck, is a little bit different. I can make those too, but the bolt-on's a little bit easier. And those type of guitars can be made anywhere in China by the same factory making other guitars or other products. And they make them, they advertise on AliExpress, Alibaba. They'll sell them, try to sell them occasionally on eBay. There's another site called Reverb, which is a bit more authentic. It's pretty much real deal stuff. I don't think they would let that get by, but occasionally it happens. So let's take AliExpress, one of the main counterfeiting sites in the world. And somebody sees one of my clients' guitars, a Schecter. Schecter is a brand based in California. And their products are made in a couple of different territories, including the US. Let's say they have some lower price models made in China. And someone sees this guitar and they go, whoa, I can get a Schecter for $249 with a specific bridge and these pickups. And I can get that. I'm beating the man, the gender non-specific person company. Right? I'm beating them. I'm taking advantage of this. This happens all day, every day. And there's an article I wrote, and it's from 2013, I think, on that list of things that Karen's going to send you around. I wrote for one of the guitar magazines, that was one of the worldwide guitar magazines. And I said, you're just beating yourself, because I've had this conversation. People have told me, hey, Ron, I bought a fake Schecter. It only took me a year to get it to be really playable. Yeah, I had to buy some new tuning machines, the things that you tune up. I had to buy some new pickups, the things that you already know, right? I had to buy these new things. I had to rewire it, but it only took me a year. A year to make that piece of garbage playable. Why don't you just buy the real thing? But you know, it was cool because I was getting something over. That is a consumer concept that abounds everywhere, from the consumers with handbags to guitar players, bass players who think they're getting something inexpensive, something cheap. I have met many thousands of these people, and yet they think there's nothing, no problem, victimless, nothing can go wrong. I haven't even gotten to the criminal penalties yet, but I'm just talking about the civil penalties, right? Because they're coming from China, and the problem coming from China is, how do we stop that here? How do I enforce that domestically is the most difficult thing. All we can do is use customs to prevent the importation. By the way, customs can seize product and destroy it. If they seize a container in a dock and they contact me as attorney of record, and they'll go, I've got a container full, that's a couple of hundred guitars. I've got a container full of fake ESP or Schecter or any other of our clients' products here. What do you want me to do? Well, they contact whoever it was intended to go to, and then they say, I don't know anything about that. And then the next thing is, it sits for a while, and then we get a destruction order, and it's carried out, and they are destroyed. Right? Why are we destroying those things and not giving them to music schools? For two reasons. One is because we don't even know the quality of them. They may be unplayable. We don't want kids to get a bunch of guitars they can't play and can't tune, which will then have a terrible reflection on the client, Schecter or ESP or whoever it may be. So sometimes we've destroyed them. Now, we try not to. It's a last resort, but sometimes we have. And that seems like a somewhat largely overt and grand gesture to go and destroy product, but it's for the betterment of everybody that they don't get into the marketplace. If we pick them up and we try them and they're at least playable, we don't want our name on them, but sometimes we may sand off the name. Just a conversation to be had. So on my last note, before we get to the questions, also on this list, a few years ago, we were in the middle of a very tense piece of litigation in the Ninth Circuit, that's California Middle District, involving Gibson Guitars, who was suing one of our clients for, of all things, counterfeiting. Now, we're on the other side now, where we're saying, wait a minute, how could that be a counterfeit? Our name's on it, our box is on it. The case it comes in says our name. How could it be a counterfeit? Because they were saying the product configuration, the shape of the instrument, of the headstock, or the body shape of the instrument is counterfeiting. Well, that is not how it always goes. That case went to trial, and we got that all dismissed before trial, so counterfeiting was not a part of the case, and there was an $8 million claim on that, and we got that dismissed. So counterfeiting, generally, in sort of summing up the theory, is that it's using your mark, right? It's going to have your mark on it, a spurious mark, a mark that is intended to confuse the consumer, all right? That's actual confusion. I'm totally confused as to whose this is. And the counterfeiting aspect is that they're looking to sell as if they were you, have not spent the marketing dollars, promotional dollars that you have put into it, don't have the quality control, are not going to warrant and represent anything about that product in terms of quality, right? If you buy a really, really expensive piece of jewelry or watch, you know you're getting sometimes a lifetime guarantee. You bring that back, we'll fix it for you. You're not getting that from the Guangdong province manufacturer out the back door with a fake anything. Another thing that consumers generally don't take into consideration. If you know you're buying a fake, well, I just only hope you know you can't bring it back to the original manufacturer, even though people do. People do, they send it back all the time. So we've been through both sides. We understand both sides, we really do. We've been on the plaintiff side and defense side. And it's a confounding modern thing because the internet has created an instantaneous shopping market for people. And the way we can do things between credit cards, instantaneous things, and Venmo and payment methodologies, we can be looking at something on our phone and going, that's really cool. I've always wanted to have one of those. Wow. Okay. And in 10 seconds or less, I can order a dozen of those fake things and they'll be on my doorstep. By the way, generally not in a regular box. The guitars have always showed up in these yellow pieces of styrofoam with packing tape around them. Not even in a case or a box. And by the way, all the counterfeits that I had stacked up around our offices, which I've now all given away, people go, oh, they look great. None of them are playable. So they're useless as an instrument. So back to the summary. One, we want to register our marks. That's our maintenance, right? We're going to register our marks. We're going to pay for the renewals. We're going to pay for our maintenance. We're going to police our marks. We're going to mark our goods properly. And then if we have to, we may have to be on the offense in policing by actually enforcing our rights with our marks however we can, either registering and putting them into customs, or we can be in federal court, an expensive procedure, and we do our best to not have that become a 3 to 4 year program of spending lots of money. But that's sort of how that works with consumer products. So Howard and I discussed having about 15 minutes of Q&A, and we're both open to those questions. Fire away.
Well, I have a question. So I'm a little company. Maybe I don't have deep resources. Am I stuck? When I find that, what recourse or what might I do if I don't have deep pockets?
Most people don't. So, but there is the cost of doing business, and that is you have to start with the trademark. That is, I think that there isn't a conversation that could be had where I can tell anybody why they shouldn't. It's why you should. You have to. Once you register a mark, you can do what we do takedowns, right? We go to AliExpress or eBay and we say, we own that trademark. That is a counterfeit item. Take that down. And they will do that. So that doesn't take a lot of money or time, but we need to own the mark to do that. Without the mark, you can't really send anything. I have common law rights under the Lanham Act. That's no fairsies is not really a great legal theory. What you really want to have is, even as a small company, the brand is everything to you. You should own it and then enforce it. Do you have to go to federal court? You're not required. If you police the mark, you're doing your job.
Okay, and what if in the case that we spoke about earlier, it is just the product? They're not using your brand. They just took your design.
See, design, we're going to move into one of three things, right? A design can be a design patent, that somebody has intellectual property protection on a design. Can't protect an idea, right? So there has to be something here in terms of a design that is proprietary. That's ours. It's something here, right? It just can't be a glass that has a certain look to it, right? That may not be able to be protectable. So we have a design patent. We have a trademark in the product configuration. This is a product configuration, right? That base is a product configuration. So we have a thing, the Absolute bottle, the Coca-Cola bottle. These are product configurations. There are protectable aspects in product configurations. So as long as the product configuration has a source indicator that people think of us, we can help, we can protect that. And that may take some time to get that through the trademark system, to own that with secondary meaning, as lawyers speak now. I know everybody wants a nap right now, but that's something that we seek to enforce every time we can. It doesn't take a lot of money to do that, but you must put aside a slight amount of investment capital to own the marks. Form the company, form the LLC, own the marks. I don't have a better answer for that, except got to get done.
Okay, sorry, can I ask a question?
Sure, who am I speaking to?
So this is Cindy.
Hi, Cindy.
Hi. So when you do see somebody knocking off your product, or even if they're taking your image and you know it's your image, what are the next steps? I mean, do you have to get a lawyer? And it's Alibaba. Like, how do I even get in touch with Alibaba or Etsy? Sometimes I see things on Etsy.
All right, so you should understand. Let's go back up a little bit. First, you said something important. You said image. That's a copyright. If someone's literally taking an image from your website, that's a copyright. So all of your images on your website, A, you should own all of them. They should not be from some other place. And they should not be from a photographer that you paid but don't have an agreement with that it's work for hire and you own. Be really careful with that. It's an image you own, so you can enforce it. You'll need to register the copyright in the image so you can enforce it. And then you say, hey, that image is mine. And I have intellectual property interests within the product itself. And Etsy, by the way, there are cases with Amazon, so you should know, and Etsy, where they say, we are not responsible for damages to you. We just have vendors, right? This is literally what the cases say. So don't get mad at me, but they'll say that. So, but they all have takedown methodologies. And so we understand Alibaba is a Chinese mega company that is going to protect Chinese domestic companies. If there's any doubt about that, I got a bridge for you, that direction towards New York. They're going to protect all of the Chinese companies, but they will take things down that are overt violations of international owned registrations, copyrights, things of this nature. They will generally take them down. There may be a tussle, but they'll take them down. And that doesn't require a lawyer. You can do that yourself, but you have to register with, yes, the Ali Protect, as they call it. So you're in the system and you can say, that's mine. I own that. Take that down.
And how long does it take though to register you have to do a trademark or copyright on an image?
Image is copyright.
Image is copyright.
The product is trademark.
Product is trademark. And what about, what do you do for design? Is that design is copyright?
In terms of design, you have to be more specific. Is it a pattern on a piece of clothing?
So I heard about people that can knock off your design too.
If you can show me, we share a screen or give me some more detail about design. Design is an amorphous sort of word here. We can't protect ideas, right? We can't say flowers on a shirt or mine, but a very specific pattern of flowers on a shirt. And Howard and I have seen many of these where people have Hawaiian shirts where they buy the pattern from some other place and then they put it on the shirt, but someone says, oh, I have a copyright in this design because my pattern has flowers that go in this direction and this direction. That's a copyright generally. If people recognize it as a source indicator, we can go a bit towards trademark, but the trademark issue there is not the same thing, right? We're generally going to be talking about copyright when it comes to patterns and when it comes to clothing. If there's a trademark, it's going to be the label, right? The label back here, that's your trademark, right? That says, hey, somebody said, I am Cindy Designs with the SINDY, and you have a trademark in Cindy Designs. Well, that's your trademark, right? They're trying to pass themselves off as your product just by changing one letter. That doesn't count. That's still going to be infringing or probably counterfeit.
Okay.
All right. So, yeah, I mean, Cindy, if it was really overtly simple, I could answer everything in a sentence, but that's
Right.
It's what lawyers do. But I'm not going to equivocate and I'm not going to use the old lawyer thing, generally this and generally that. I'll be specific as I can. So, you can get a copyright in a pattern. These are things that's a registration. You got to go and do that. But if it's your brand, that's a trademark and you should register that. Two separate forms of intellectual property. There's only 3 types here, right? Well, 4 if you count trade secrets, but really 3. It's patent, trademark, or copyright. One of those 3 things. Trade secrets is a little bit off to the side. But yeah, when we enforce something, we have to enforce something. As soon as we're done with this, around a little after 2, I have to talk to somebody about a whole copyright issue where he says, your client's using my idea, and I keep writing letters to the lawyer saying, you can't protect an idea, you can't protect it, you can't protect a song title, you can't protect an idea. There are things that are not protectable. Not everything is protectable. Not everything is. But if you have a very specific pattern and a very specific name and a very specific branding, these are protectable items.
Yeah, it is difficult.
It's always better not to just say, one of the great marks that always confounds me is Best Buy, but yellow custard mustard, apparel is a lot easier of a brand to say than Best Apparel, right? You have to be able to protect whatever the mark is. So the more arbitrary, the more interesting, the more different the structure of your mark is, the easier it is to protect. And by the way, so we're really clear, standard characters or character of yellow mustard custard is more protective than a stylized logo. And I know that doesn't make much sense, but it does, because there are other elements in a logo, right? There's other elements that we have to take into account on a logo, but the standard character uses of certain words is a more protectable trademark than many of the stylized marks. So the first thing we would want is to own it in standard character. Second would be the stylized mark. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but it's not.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions? Or they just fell asleep. It's one of the two things.
No.
Ron, I have a question.
I was waiting for you to play.
Ron,
I'll send a video around. Yes, Howard.
Ron, question
Yes.
for you. Maybe you want to talk about how the process works when a new client comes in the door and
Sure.
has a trademark. Why don't you explain that?
So there's two issues there, and I'll be as brief as I can. So applying for a trademark is not like applying, or I should say registering a copyright. Copyrights you send into the copyright office, they stamp it, it's going to come back. Very seldom is there a problem, unless your specimen's wrong or something, right? So trademark is applying to the United States Patent and Trademark Office, and you have to get your application into an examiner, a lawyer who works for the government. During the pandemic, the amount of trademark applications went up something like 30+%. So we're still backlogged. So it's going to take 3-4 months or more to get to an examiner. And when the examiner gets your application, they're going to say, which is why we say, please don't. I know this is, I'm going to be recorded in saying this. Please don't use one of those, how should I say, online services. You see them advertised on television. Very handsome people who you think are the lawyers, but they're not even real people. They're actors walking around looking very important, writing things down on pads. Don't use those services. I'll have to fix it later. But figure it'll come to about 4 months or so, we get to an examiner. The examiner takes a look at what we've just sent in or what you've sent in, and they'll go, yeah, this is good. Check the boxes on everything I need here. Dates, right? First date of usage, first date of use in commerce. I got the specimen. Everything lines up. Okay, very good. I have filed this trademark as in use, right? There's also intend to use, 2 types. I haven't used it yet, but I want to get an earlier date, so I'm going to send that in. That's possible. So I send this in, examiner goes, this is great, I'm all set. The examiner puts it in the system and it comes out to publication. It then in publication can be objected to, an opposition by a third party who says, no, that's mine. Happens occasionally. Some of the most large scale cases I've ever dealt with have been trademark oppositions. And we were in the middle of them all the time. All right. We say, no, wait, what are you doing? You can't get that. We've been making the same thing or similar thing for longer than you. We just kind of saw you're trying to register it. That's a trademark opposition. Then once it registers, now you have a registered mark. That's what you can use at AliExpress and Alibaba. Much simpler. You have a number. Here's my registration number. And then you make sure you maintain it between the 5th and 6th year, right? That's called an 8 and 15. Don't figure that out with the numbers. 8 and 15. And then there's an 8 and 9 between the 9th and 10th year. So that makes sure that you maintained it, you policed it, because most people will file, get it, and not realize you have to maintain it. You got to pay for the renewals. Trademarks have been around since the late 1700s. Patents were copyrights were a little bit earlier, but trademarks are, Crane Paper, I think, is the people who make the paper for the government. Have been around since 1803. I think that's the mark. So trademarks can last as long as you pay those maintenance fees. And it's tremendous. And then Howard asked about licensing. When you own a mark, you can license that mark, right? You get a royalty structure. Someone could make, that product and use your brand or use something that you own as a mark. We have a license deal with them. And the enforceability of that license deal and the ability to terminate are all based upon lots of things in that license, but one of them is quality control. You must maintain, whoever makes it for you has to maintain quality control. And you get to look at that product and you get to say, that's not good. I have to terminate this. You're not making good stuff. Or else if you don't, the case law, sorry, lawyer speak, case law will say, you gave it up. You just gave it to them. It's not a license. You just let them do what they wanted with it, which does happen. So trademark licenses are very specific into quality control, how people advertise the product, attribution, that it's the Cindy brand, that here it is, it's on the website, it says licensed by Cindy Brands. That's important stuff in every license. But royalties are great. People like to refer to that as mailbox money. Okay, I'll do that for now. Karen,
Muted myself. Got a little loud here for a second. Thank you very much for your time. I have no doubt we could talk about this for a really long time, Howard. And I shot you a note because it kind of inspired me to think about something for the magazine. And for everybody listening, if you go back to our last magazine, there's a wonderful article that they have prepared, and our next AC magazine, which is out on October 5th, will continue this topic. So I think we may have to wait for Ron's performance, but we'll follow up with Howard, the booking agent, on that one.
I'll gladly send Howard a video he can share with everybody. Yeah, I don't have an amp up here, so it'd be kind of difficult for everybody to hear it. So pleasure to meet everybody. Questions, just ask Howard or I, and then we're here to help you. Look, the most important thing is protecting you and your products.
And Ron, all the links that you sent out, I will share with everyone along with a recap, because you might want to, there was a lot of information that came out quickly. So you may want to rewatch the video if you have questions too. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Karen.
Have a good
Thanks, Ron.
afternoon.
Thanks,
All righty.
everyone.
Thanks, everyone.